Hello, and welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
This is the podcast for you if you like things that are a bit off the beaten track, if you like murder and mystery, and perhaps a little mayhem in your spare time.
Just a little spare mayhem.
A little spare mayhem. Can you spare a cup of mayhem?
Throw it.
I'm going to go ask my neighbor that one. My neighbor this morning brought me homemade olive salad to go in a muffaletta.
Oh,
Her husband decided he wanted muffaletta, so he made olive salad, which you can't make a small amount. So she's like, I don't want to eat this for the entire rest of my life. Can I bring you some?
Yeah.
I said, yeah.
It's fun when neighbors bring things.
Yes. So who are you?
Oh, who am I ever? I'm Shannon Lawrence. Horror author, mom, pet owner. You can find me at thewarriormuse.com. What about you?
I am MB Partlow. I am a rodeo clown. I really need to plan these out before we get here and I just blurt out.
Well, what we technically need to do is make an intro where we just introduce the show.
And say the same thing every time.
And then I just staple that out. Well, no, we record it once and then I put it over head. Wow. That's a real pre-planning. That's beyond our abilities.
Wow.
I just don't know how to sew something in yet. And I just haven't had the time to learn it. So eventually we'll do it.
We will.
And then it'll be the same entry every time.
And it will have the not suitable for work warning.
It will.
It will, because we swear, we talk about murder, we talk about death and dismemberment, we talk about ghosties and ghoulies and gross things.
And how they got to be those things.
And then we call them fuckers.
Shitbags. So there's all sorts of great verbiage that might occur in this show. So I will say, give a warning before we chat, that I think we both have dark subjects this time.
I believe we do.
So that's your warning. We usually try and balance it out, but you know what? It was a dark week. So
it was.
We went where we went.
We did. Yeah, and it's surprising for me because I usually have something wacky.
Yeah.
But this time I went dark.
We'll try next time. We'll try to do a light one next time. If we have light ones, we'll record them first next time.
Yes.
I don't know. It's the end of the school year, so guess what? We're probably going to continue to be pretty bitchy about some things because being parents with kids in school, whether it's middle school, high school, or college, during a pandemic is fucking stressful.
Now, this will be coming out. This will be coming out on April 21st, so I would like to say happy college graduation.
Congratulations.
Yay to thing two.
Do you want me to? Okay, I was like, name or not?
I call her Nikki all the time,
okay.
So
Congratulations to Nikki.
Yes, woohoo! Yay! And I will be in Arkansas for that, eating as much barbecue and catfish as I
Quit rubbing it in.
As I can stuff in my pie hole.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I've been craving barbecue so hardcore right now. Ooh, this week we're going to be getting HelloFresh. So I haven't gotten it yet, so I really can't review it. But each of the kids picked one, so we're doing 3 a week. Because it's actually cheaper than what it costs to eat out, which is exciting. And that's probably one of the more expensive services.
So what'd they pick out, or do you know?
Oh, God, I don't remember. But I had them pick the first 2 weeks.
So what'd you pick?
I don't remember.
HelloFresh is a surprise. You go down, you pull out a bag. And,
it can be. Well, so they leaned heavily toward pasta. Oh. So then I told boy child he had to mix it up and not choose pasta. And then I had the spouse pick one for the second. So I picked the third meal in the first. And then for the second week, I let him pick it. But the kids have to each pick one because they will be making them.
Right.
This is to take a little pressure off of me.
Oh, see, how many weeks out have you ordered?
Just 2 so far.
Okay. Because I was like, I think I only did 1 week at a time.
I just wanted to go through and look at all the stuff there was.
I get it.
But then the spouse chose pasta, and I was like, you guys, we can't just eat pasta 3 days a week, please. It's not Italy, and I don't even think they eat it 3 days a week. Despite what the restaurants may have us believing. Actually, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure they don't just eat pasta there. No. So I think there's a lot of other magical food. And it's just like, they don't just eat tacos in Mexico. In fact, it's probably a snack. You know? Like,
it's street food.
Yes. So anyway, I'm excited to try that for the first time.
Well, since we're talking about food, have you been to any interesting restaurants?
No.
Well, then I have.
Yay!
I went someplace new. I mean, I ate in the car because COVID, but
yeah.
I went to the Chippy for fish and chips on Austin Bluffs. And I was very excited because they had mushy peas, which I think are delightful. Oh my God. You're making the worst face.
The only thing that sounds worse to me than peas is mushy peas.
So
okay.
These were really kind of odd because it was like mushy peas, like somebody had made a batch of mushy peas and then they'd put whole peas in it.
Okay.
It was odd.
Not what it's supposed to be.
Or
at least not as you're familiar.
Not what I was familiar with. It tasted okay. Their French fries are really good. And the fish was really good. Yep. So, and the service was good.
We got 3 new British restaurants here.
We did.
In the last year. Yeah, there's a thing called the British Pantry or something like that.
I've heard of that.
And there's another fish and chips place. And actually there's a 4th because there was a fish truck that opened up. Like a food truck.
Oh, yeah.
So
we have our work cut out for us.
You know, I am not a big fish person, so you have your work cut out for you. I'm going to take Jeffrey, though, because he likes...
Well, I really wanted to go to Chef Bob's Lobster Trap.
Yeah.
But I didn't get there.
And we didn't do an adult dinner this week. So I think instead I ended up doing like IHOP because you can get this massive family meal with like eggs and bacon and French toast and sausage and hash browns and pancakes. And since that is what my children will eat, like my daughter will take that down like she's a cheetah. And it is a little horned beastie. So it just sometimes got to do it to get that food into her.
I get it.
So yeah, so I did not have exciting food this week, but husband having been gone to Arkansas, I plan on having an adult night this week because I need one because I am stressed out and overwhelmed and I need an adult night. Yeah. Ooh. What did you watch this week?
I watched a couple of things. So on TV, I watched the series. Did you watch the end of WandaVision?
No, I have not because Jeffrey was gone the night it came out. So not only that, but I didn't get to watch Coming to America 2, which is on Amazon Prime, and I'm very upset about that.
I watched that too.
Oh, is it good?
I don't think it's as good as the first one.
Yeah.
But it has its moments. It has a trope. This is not going to surprise me. This is, honest to God, this is not going to ruin anything. I don't like this in romance novels. I don't like it in movies. I don't like it in any novels. Where 2 people meet and they are in love and they want to get married. And they've known each other about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it always needs to.
It's
like, Arsenio's turn.
Well, no, but...
No.
So, and I would say they're more culturally aware.
Okay, yes.
They're a whole lot more politically correct.
I was sitting there, I was like, we could watch Coming to America with the kids and then watch 2 together. And then I was like... seem to recall some inappropriateness and like
I'm trying to think, is there anything in it you couldn't show your kids?
In the original?
Yeah.
Well, doesn't he get bathed by nude women or are they not?
They're not. I don't think you
see, I don't remember. That's the problem. So I have to watch it before
the second one, you know that they're nude when they get in the tub, but when you see them, you're not seeing boobies.
Okay. Well, and it's implied, at least through words, that they're going to service him in the first one. So
there's a little turnabout in the second
good.
one.
But that's the thing is, like, I don't remember how explicit anything is. I mean, they're teens, so they can technically watch it. Do they want to watch it with their parents? That is the question.
I think that one would be okay. And what I did like about the first one was Akeem, the Eddie Murphy character. He gets to know the woman that he falls in love with. You know, they go out on dates. They talk about things. It's not, boom, hello, let's get married. I'm in love.
I've seen you, and therefore I know everything I need to know about you.
So let me know after you watch.
Okay, yeah, I told Jeffrey he needs to be prepared Tuesday night.
Yes.
So after he comes home from work, he can have a nap. And then one of our children, probably girl child, because she won't have just been on a trip, gets to make a HelloFresh meal because they arrive tomorrow. And then I was like, we're going to watch the last episode of WandaVision, and then we're going to watch Coming to America 2. because I'm going to watch it, and I've been looking forward to having a new freaking movie, which this year has not been much of.
No, because I still haven't signed up for HBO, even though every other week I say, I need to sign up for that. Did you happen to catch Debris? It's network, but you can... I
mean, there was a little and it fell off of the shelf. And...
Right?
Yeah.
It's debris from something flies by the planet and debris falls.
Oh, yeah. Okay, no.
It's, so I watched the first episode and I went, I'll watch it again. I'll watch a couple episodes. It was kind of, it wasn't what I expected, but it looks interesting. So this debris has fallen from a spaceship that went past the planet, and it's the effects these artifacts have on people. And of course, there are people who want to weaponize that.
Of course.
So
we have to weaponize everything.
Of course.
I watched a movie called, it was like Skyfire or something. I don't remember if I talked about this because it was a couple weeks ago. And it was, we watched it on Amazon Prime maybe, but it was a whole volcano erupting disaster. I've noticed disaster movies are starting to come out again, which I love a disaster movie.
Skyfire?
I think so. And I think it was, now I'm going to get myself in trouble because again, it was several weeks ago. I think it was Chinese made?
Huh.
Oh, I don't remember. Anyway, so there was one known like British actor that you would recognize, but he's not somebody I know by name. That was in it, but the rest was dubbed. So like his was the only thing not dubbed throughout it. But I mean, it was a great disaster movie. I liked it. There was a really hot guy in it, and he kept saving everybody. So I was like, even though he wasn't the main character, so I called him Sir Saves a lot through the whole thing. So I don't even remember his character's name. But he was pretty to look at. But anyway, it wasn't even on my list to talk about today. But there's another disaster movie coming out. There's a bunch of disaster movies coming out, and I'm like, it's funny to track what the trends are and stuff like that, right? So maybe nobody's really watching some heavy horror, and noticeably the one that I talked about in the last episode was very confined to this little farm, right? There's very little interplay from anybody off of the farm, which seems appropriate. Now it's going to be freakier because it is isolated in a home like we are. So anyway, we're going to start seeing those trends, right? What's big in horror? Because horror very much reflects what's happening, right?
Yes.
And I consider stuff like disaster films are a form of horror. I mean, it's not like anybody's writing a bunch of books about them, but they're meant to touch those same places, set off your fear response.
You know, I have a real love-hate relationship with disaster movies.
Really, the cheesier, like, I will watch them all.
I can't look away from them.
Yeah.
But some of them really disturb me.
See, girl child will not watch. She hates disaster movies. They freak her out.
Yeah.
Now, bear in mind, she was what? 2012?
Oh.
She was very little
yeah.
when the Waldo Canyon fire came and we ran
Evacuated.
through what looked like ash from a volcano literally falling on our neighborhood. So both of the kids were pretty traumatized by that. But my son loves a disaster movie, but he's less fond of horror, straight horror. She loved,
right.
It's kind of fading right now because she gets upset by it, but loved straight horror. She thinks face huggers and xenomorphs are the most adorable things ever, and she still does. But she never liked disaster movies. So each of them have been like, they have the thing that bothers them.
I think it's because, okay, so Independence Day, is a movie that almost everybody has seen. So you get a lot of destruction in that. You know, they're blowing up the cities, they're blowing up this, they're blowing up that, and then you see a movie like Day After Tomorrow, which of course I watched because Dennis Quaid was in it. Hello, but there's the same amount of destruction. Yeah. Why does it bother me in one movie and not the other? And I think it's because you can fight an alien. Yeah. I mean, not everybody could fight and win and not be killed, but
you have a chance. It's like
Day After Tomorrow
running from something on a boat and running from something on land.
Yeah. In Day After Tomorrow, it's the fucking weather. You can't run away from that. It's just there. It's just, yeah. So,
you have to deal.
I don't know. I think it bugs me when it's something you can't fight.
Makes sense.
But you know what? I did like Twister.
Yeah.
But good. Probably because I don't have any experience with tornadoes.
I still remember the teaser trailers that first came out because there was like a tire bouncing. Yeah. Like the big tire bouncing toward, and I was like, oh my God, I love this movie. So I actually remembered that teaser. So yeah, I love a disaster. So anyway, I didn't watch any this week, including that Skyfire or whatever it was. But I did watch, so TV show wise, I watched something, because I guess I will look for that tension anywhere I can. I watched something called Snake City, and it's about a couple. I thought they were married, but they're not. They're boyfriend and girlfriend.
Documentary or series?
It's just a reality TV series.
Oh my God.
Where these people in South Africa, which by the way, you guys, stop bitching about Australia and go check out some of the shit that will kill you in South Africa. Oh my God. Anyway, they have a lot of they have a black mamba, a green mamba, a boomslang, or as they say there, boomslang, and fucking spitting cobras. Okay? And
that's why you said poisonous snakes shouldn't be able to spit at you. That's why I posted Dear
Nature. There is no reason, and I do know what the reason is. It was because apes were like their major predators, and so they evolved to be able to spit the venom at them. Because anyway, there you go. That's your interesting fact for right now. Spitting cobras spit because their main predators were apes.
So what are we talking about in Snake City, this couple?
So they go and it's people calling in because the snakes are constantly in people's fucking houses. I hate that, but I love it. I mean, it freaks me the hell out. So here's the thing that people need to know about me. I have a severe snake phobia, and yet I am fascinated by them. I think they're gorgeous and amazing creatures. I make myself touch them at the zoo. If I run into a gardener snake in real life, I'm not going to go run over and pick it up, but I will stay back and,
you won't run over it.
No, I don't. I hate when people just kill a snake. I hate when people kill anything out of fear.
Yes.
I even put spiders outside, you guys. But anyway, so I'm watching it and I'm getting that creepy crawly, right? And so I'm just tense as hell watching this. But it's fascinating. And these snakes are just constantly in people's house. So they go and they rescue the snakes. And I love watching a show where they care, right? Like that's why everybody liked The Crocodile Hunter.
Yes.
Because they really care about these snakes. They want to save the snakes as much as they want to save the people. They don't just not care about the people. And so they're educating you on it. And the girlfriend in the situation who helps him, this is their business. She's so allergic to venom that she can't be in the room if there's, as they call them, a spitter, which is a spitting cobra situation.
Oh my God.
Because even if it doesn't touch her, it being in the air can make her like her breathing shut down and stuff like that.
It's like an author we know in Mangoes.
Yes.
Oh my God.
She has an anaphylactic reaction to venom. So they have to be very careful when they're venomous. And sometimes you don't have a choice. You're going to be put in a precarious situation to get the snake out of there to save it.
That's dedication.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's a fascinating, there's only one season. So it was like season 6 that was on Netflix, I think. I think that's where I was watching it. And just, yeah. I loved it and I hated it. Hated myself. There was, for anybody anywhere in hearing vicinity, probably heard, oh, fuck no, about a billion times because we would do something, fuck no. And they're, of course, entertaining because people don't get these reality shows for being boring. No. So he's like, his entire body is tattooed. She has pink hair and tattoos, and they're just out there finding all these snakes. They got to find one that was poisonous, and now I don't remember what it was. Ugh. But it had been brought because there are, Africa's a huge continent. So there's a lot of times, like this guy had gone on a trip, I think scuba diving or something. I don't remember. He opens his bag and this snake jumps out at him and he's like, I don't recognize this snake. He was like this total blonde surfer dude, like South African surfer dude. And so they come in and he called them.
Shit my pants.
No shit. And he's just standing in there. And then there was like another one, and the guy said he was standing out. He kind of has like this covered patio, I guess. And he's standing out there having a cigarette. And he said something brushes over his chest and he flicks it out of the way. And then it brushes his chest again. He flicks it out of the way and then he looks over and it's a fucking poisonous snake. I don't remember. It was a black mamba, I think, in that case.
Oh my God.
So he freaks out and he calls them. They get there and he's just animated talking because he's, of course, got that adrenaline. You don't flick a black mamba and not pay for it.
Yeah.
But this one was just like, So they've got to find it and they're like, dude, you don't know how lucky you were. Like, I get that you understand that this could have been bad. You do not flick a black mamba and not have it bite you. And it would have been on the chest. So he would have been dead. Very big dead.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so fascinating, gives me goosebumps, makes me have the creepy crawlies. Like my heating pad slid down and touched my neck at one point, and I was like... But anyway, I quite enjoyed it, but I watched the whole season. And Jeff's like, why do you do this to yourself? Because, like, I will watch Anaconda and Snakes on a Plane if I want to oog myself out.
Snakes on a Plane was pretty amusing.
It's pretty amusing,
I should
but
write that down.
there are lots of sneaky snakes all
Yes.
over the place of all different kinds. So, and then I've been watching some 2020 episodes, so I finally saw the one where Don Smith's dad, and she was interviewed in the 2021. So I saw Don Smith Miller,
Nice.
who was a writer who was local. So, and then I watched the John Benet Ramsey one. It's the first time any show has actually made me think it wasn't the parents. So her father was adamant that it was a stranger. He, in fact, videoed himself breaking into that basement room and showed how easy it was.
Oh. I'm guessing he didn't realize how easy it was before it happened. Or he would have taken steps to...
Well, yeah, he didn't. Lou Smith was the detective.
Right.
Well, he was brought in after, actually. And he got so pissed off at them because they were so hardcore about the parents being the ones who killed John Benet that... he could not get them. They were one directional, unidirectional. And he said, well, I quit.
Blinders.
And then he continued looking into it on his own. So, it's... Yeah, and his family and some other folks continue using his material because he had a bunch and he did videos on it and everything, trying to figure out who did it. So
There's a kitty in the room.
It's a Cleopatra.
It's a Cleo.
But yeah, so I've been watching that. It's been a while since I watched 2020, so I've watched a bunch of interesting.
I don't know if I've ever watched 2020.
I think I used to record it and try and watch it because there's a weekly true crime before there was true crime everywhere.
I should probably check it out.
Oh, well, so I watched one on Anna Nicole Smith too.
Oh, wow.
Which it wasn't really true crime about that, but there was so much I didn't know about her, and I'm pretty sure I remember having my own personal thoughts about her being with he was 80 or...
He was very much older. Wasn't there some mystery or some around her death?
Well, yeah, it's that she was young and she shouldn't have died from it, but they did go into it. It just... I don't remember if there was an overdose situation or if it was just this raging infection. She was on... So what I didn't know about her is she had constant migraines.
Oh.
Which, of course, already right there for me went...
Yep.
No wonder, because so there's this footage they always show kind of to mock her, and she's at an award show. I don't know if it was a Nickelodeon award show or something like that, and she's not making a ton of sense. She seems like she's on drugs, but she had just had, because her migraine situation led her to a seizure disorder. She had her first major seizure the night before. This was totally new to her. So she wasn't making sense.
You don't
completely.
Oh God!
And of course, everybody just thought she was on drugs.
And there was a little girl. Didn't
she had a little baby girl right before she died.
And wasn't there a son who was older?
There was a son who was older who died.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, not long before. He died in the hospital room when the baby girl was born.
What did he die of?
I don't remember that either. I know, I just watched it. I was doing homework.
Okay, that's fair.
But it was the other things I absorbed that I'd never heard before is the thing, and so I'd heard about the death things before, but it was just such a mess. Yeah. The thing is, her doctors, I think it must have been an overdose because her doctors were over prescribing her medications. She was taking more than she was supposed to, which I have migraines. I refuse to take medication most of the time. You've probably seen me take it more than other people because I take it in situations like a conference.
Right. And
stuff like that. Or if we're driving somewhere because I need to be functioning better, right? Mm-hmm. But other than that, I don't take it at home. I just deal with the migraine because otherwise I feel it'd be too easy to get addicted.
Right.
To painkillers and having that pain gone. And that's what she did. But her doctor, it was to the point that her doctor prescribed her other medications in a name other than her own. So very knowingly was abusing.
Is that doctor in jail?
No, of course not. Is Michael Jackson's in jail?
I don't know.
I don't think so. And he was doing shit too.
Yeah.
So they get away with this stuff. And I don't understand that mentality because it's very much not do no harm.
Yeah, if you have to prescribe somebody medication in somebody else's name,
then you know you're wrong.
Yeah, that should be a huge red flag.
But she had some sort of raging infection and just, I guess some of the people around her tried to talk her into going to the hospital and she wouldn't. And so she ended up dying. But it actually was very illuminating about her relationship with the much older man too, and why that existed and why they were both always very clear there was nothing sexual to it, that they just cared very much about each other, and she needed that, and it made sense once you learn about her youth. But it's shit that we never heard back then. All they wanted to do was tell us all the things that were embarrassing about her.
They only publicize the bits that make a good story.
Yeah. So I was happy I watched it. It was one of the recent 2020 episodes. It's on Hulu, so
I'll have to look up 2020.
Yeah. It gave me a new view of her that we were just really never allowed to have of her because we could only know what was put out there.
Well, because she was statuesque, and that's all we were supposed to grade her on.
And that was the thing, is that that's how she made it anywhere. And she was incredibly tall, and she was always tall. That was the thing. Like, she did the boobs up.
I didn't realize she was tall. I don't know
how tall she was, though. A tall woman. She was. Yeah, which was part of why she had self-esteem issues on the one hand, because it's, there's something that makes you stand out then. And men are kind of afraid of you, right? If you're a taller woman, they tend to be...
As a raging bitch, I can relate to that.
Right?
Not to the tall or the beautiful part, but the raging bitch part.
She always did what she needed to do to survive,
You can't fault somebody for doing that.
No, and actually that much older man, I don't remember his name,
I don't either.
Proposed to her initially, and she said, no, when I have made it on my own, then I will marry you.
Oh.
Which, again, was not put out there.
No, nobody talks about that.
Yeah, so, anyway. Wow. Interesting shows.
So, have you read anything?
I'm reading it right now.
What do you want to talk about it? Or are you waiting until next week?
I'm reading Dancing with Dementia by Jemmy Fraser, and I know her through the online blogging community. And she writes romance. I think it's The Blue Moose.
Who is it by?
Jemmy Fraser. Jemifraser. She is Canadian.
I think I've heard of this book.
Okay. I shared it, I think, when it came out, too.
Maybe.
I think she's currently, I haven't reached the end, but I'm pretty sure her mom is still alive. She's taking care of her mom who has dementia. But their situation is just, her mom's second husband, they both started exhibiting dementia at the same time. And so this book is like, of course, they didn't know it was dementia then. They just, it's personality perks, and really this guy was new to their life, so.
Right.
But, oh my God, having to deal with two parents, basically, even though he's their stepdad and they were adults by the time they were married.
But still, what are you going to do? Take care of your mom and not?
Well, and the thing is, he didn't have kids, I don't think. And so her and her sister did a lot of the caretaking. They did not have the power because they were not related to him to in any way try to have him looked at for the dementia.
That's a good point.
Yes. So that was a huge struggle at the beginning.
Oh.
Then when they tried to do it with the mom, she had left a message saying, could you just please pass this on and ask them to, look at her for possible dementia. And the way they passed on the message was weird. And so they just end up saying, well, your daughter called. So telling her, which pissed her off, the mother.
Oh, yeah.
And then deciding she didn't have any, which she clearly did. And of course the thing about her mother is it went so fast from just these little signs to full-blown dementia, but they're just, oh my gosh, he gets hospitalized and the mom can't ever remember why he's there. She thinks it's his new apartment. She thinks he's cheating on her.
Oh God.
Oh my goodness. It's just what they have gone through and are, I imagine, still going through but she's put out this book kind of saying, here are the things we missed that maybe you could be aware of, and just, I don't even think her mom, at the point I'm at right now, I'm at about 40% of the book because I'm reading on an ebook. Mm-hmm. I don't even think the mom has been officially diagnosed yet. They've had home caretakers who totally believed it, but they didn't have the power to do anything when they came in because she had something. and the people at the nursing home being, well, not the nursing home, but at the hospital when they were there with the dad, being very kind and helpful for them, but he gets moved to a nursing home. And then the people there are like, she's not our job, so she can't be here if you're not. And they're like, great, now we have to explain that to her. They all had jobs.
Yeah.
So, and that's just the point I've reached now, is that hitting that point.
We've read not real life books like that, but my book group, because I belong to a book group and I've belonged to it for 25 years. Mm-hmm. We've read a couple of books over the course of time that dealt with dementia, or, a parent with dementia. And I usually get turned off by them because they're very lyrical and literary, and there's never a problem with money. Nobody ever shits themselves, and everybody has plenty of money. And I'm like, wow, okay. Now, not like I think all literature has to be gritty. It doesn't, but I'm like...
Something like that should have a sense of realism, so you're not...
Yeah, and we all get life is easier if you have a shit ton of money. It just is.
I will say that because this story her story is taking place in Canada, that, they have the medical aid, but there's still a bunch of stuff they cannot do because they cannot afford it.
Yes.
So, because it doesn't cover everything, and even in Canada, you can opt to pay for an insurance to cover more of the things, or
right.
So yes, that does come into play in the book. So I think it's very realistic. It's not an over dramatized, but it's genuine. It's honest. So I think it's well done. So, and at the end, I know that she's mentioned that there's a bunch of resources then for families and good stuff like that. But yeah, so this one, she's like, this was a pain. This element was a pain. We had to keep doing this. And it's so funny because, like, my first experience with, and I don't know if it was dementia or Alzheimer's, it always seems to be through a friend's parent. But it was this friend's grandparent. And she would call and she'd be like, somebody stole my vacuum. That was her big thing. And no, I took you out. We bought a new vacuum because your previous one died. That's your new vacuum. Nope, somebody stole my vacuum and replaced it with this one. I'm not going to use this, and somebody's been in my house, and I don't feel safe. And, it's just, there's these things that happen, and it's,
years ago, when my mom was still alive and still lived in the house that I grew up in, she had a neighbor. I don't want to say their names because it's not my place to tell their story. But when this couple had been young, when they first got married, I think my parents introduced them to each other. And actually, when they first got married, they stayed with my parents for a little while until they got their own place. So this woman would show up on my mom's doorstep, tiny little town, very rural area. So it's not like traffic was a big issue, but it scared the shit out of my mom because she would be horrified that there was a strange man in her house, and it was her husband. Yeah. But she would know to come to mom's house because that was the house.
There are things that stick.
And another gentleman I know through my step family, sweet man, who had very bad Alzheimer's, but if you pulled out a harmonica and handed it to him, he could play like you would not believe, because part of it was muscle memory.
Yes, that's pretty common.
Yeah, is
being able to do something like that. The stepfather in this knows how to play the piano because he used to play at clubs before.
Oh.
But the problem is he reaches a point. So at this point in the book, he developed, he had prostate cancer before it came back.
Okay.
And so not only are they dealing with the dementia, but and that's why he's put in the hospital and in the nursing home. That's why that confusion occurs. And he suddenly can't remember how to play. Now it had stayed with him, everything else going, but then the mother can't remember that she doesn't understand. Because one of the elements of it was a certain selfishness that came with it that at first was very confusing for them to see. Then they realized it was part of that because she just didn't care. Like, he was suffering and in pain at one point, and she just didn't care. It wasn't because she was a terrible person.
No.
It's just that change had started overcoming her. And at first they're like, why? Is she like mad at it? But so of course she's sitting there, and every day she comes in and says, let's go play the piano, because she's remembered that there's a piano in the hospital.
Right.
And every time he's like, no, I don't want to. And at one point, they just all go, no. Because it had been such an issue the day before. Because he'd been like, fine. And so they'd gotten on there and he'd gone, and that's when he discovered he couldn't anymore. And it probably broke his heart. And and he's dying, and she still thinks everything's fine, and he's coming home any day now. So you're a person with dementia dealing with a person with dementia who cannot remember what you're going through, and honestly, half the time he can't remember it.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
And the really horrific part is when you've lost someone and you have to keep telling them.
That's the thing, is that's got to be what's coming next. They're gonna have to deal with her. She doesn't like to sleep at home alone. She doesn't like. She remembers him. She wants him home, and so she sleeps on the couch and she wanders around all night. And now they're gonna have to tell her that when he inevitably dies. So that part is I'm sure
that's
coming.
That's coming. It's on the horizon.
Did you read anything?
I did. I read The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. It's a name that looks like it's Greek.
Greekish.
It's Greekish. It's really funny. I read it for my book group. It's this month's book, and it was really good. It's the main character is a therapist, and he hears about this case. It's this woman who's found in her living room, and her husband is tied to a chair, and he's been shot in the face like 6 or 7 times. He's dead, and she never speaks. She never speaks after that. Yeah, and he is. In the beginning, he is fascinated by this case and what happened and how did it happen and, what happened. And it goes from being, this is a fascinating case to kind of an obsession. And there's some really good twists in it that you do not see coming.
What's it called again?
The Silent Patient. Okay. He actually gets a job at the asylum. Asylum isn't the right word, but at the facility where she is. The mental health facility where she is. And everybody's like, why do you want to work here? We're probably going to be closed and you'll be out of a job. And he's like, it just felt like the right thing to do. It was funny. I had strong opinions about the book, but I don't want to give anything away.
Okay. You can't.
And I also reread Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett.
Okay.
Which is one of my very favorites of his. I read his, I've read everything, but Men at Arms it just pulls a whole bunch of elements together. It's sort of a turning point. You've got a lot of things that have been in prior books. This is set in Ankh-Morpork, and it involves Sam Vimes, and it takes some of what we've learned about him from the past, and it pulls in all these elements that are going to play out in the future of the books. It's just really good, and it makes me laugh out loud. So
yeah, you should just read all of them because they make you happy.
I do. Whenever I'm having, I have my comfort reads. I read Terry Pratchett because it makes me feel better. I read, I'm never going to remember her name. It's the Lindley and Havers mystery series set in London. But she's she writes these British books, but she's American. Cannot remember her name. I'll shout it out at some point. They're really good, but those are also because I've read them all and I kind of know what's happening. So sometimes I reread those, or I'll reread Diane Mott Davidson. Oh yeah. Except one. There's one that's just depressed and depressing because the main character just cries through the whole book.
I kind of been wanting to go back and read the Sue Grafton books from the beginning because I discovered those as a preteen at a it was the bookstore that was all the malls, and I usually know what it's called. Was it W? White?
It wasn't Mackenzie White.
Oh yeah, Mackenzie White.
Oh, because that was the independent bookstore.
We had Mackenzie White at the mall, Chapel Hills Mall.
Huh? Outside the mall or in the mall?
In the mall.
Huh?
So I found it was like one of those. My big thing is going to the bookstore, and so there's two things. I like going to the indie bookstores and looking at the employees' picks. That's how I find good books.
Yep.
That I wouldn't otherwise read, and then going through the clearance books.
Yes.
Because all the big people, because they order so many copies, so then I get like these giant hardbacks for $6 or whatever. And so anyway, way back when I found My first Sue Grafton.
I haven't reread her in a long time either.
Mm-hmm. And it's all in a row, you know. It's all set in the 80s, like the whole time she kept it. So I feel like that could be a comfort read.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody brought her up the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, Sue Grafton. She was really my introduction to like mystery.
And she writes, what's her character's name?
Kinsey Milhone.
That's right. Did you read the V.I. Warshawski?
Yeah, I read some of them.
I liked those. They got a little, I would say for me, they got a little formulaic.
Probably since I only read a couple of them, and I didn't read them until I'd watched the movie with Kathleen Turner.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it.
Again,
I'm pretty easy to please with movies, honestly. If I tell you a movie sucked, you should really believe it sucked, because if I'm in any way entertained, then I'm fine. I'm pretty easy to entertain, honestly. You're welcome. But we need to get started, because that was a really super long intro.
Oh, okay. So I will get started then. So what I am talking about is a little boy named Walter Collins and the Wineville Chicken Coop Murders, which is a mouthful. And once I started looking at this, I was like, oh yes, I have heard about this.
That's the thing, because the name is so different than how you know it. I'm always like, okay, I'm pretty sure I remember this.
Yeah, and it's once I get into it, people are going to go, oh, it's that case.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you don't associate necessarily his name with it. Mm-mm. So I got, the first reference I got to this was off of the Reader's Digest website. Yeah. I was just looking for strange, unsolved stuff, and you never know where you're going to get a...
Well, mine was, I was listening to somebody, one of the podcasts talking about John Lennon's murder, and they just happened to mention, because somebody who has mental issues, and brought up this person, I went, oh, and then I looked them up, because they're not as well known, so...
So, ReadersDigest.com, of course, Wikipedia, Murderpedia...
Yes.
And the Crime Museum. The Crime Museum has some interesting stuff sometimes.
I use them too on this one. Yeah.
Okay, so you especially might remember a movie called The Changeling that came out in 2008. Clint Eastwood directed, and Angelina Jolie starred. And the bare bones of the storyline, in March of 1928, Christine Collins reported her 9-year-old son missing in LA. He went to the movies and never returned. 5 months later, the LAPD brought back her son, except Christine claimed this was not her son. And the police insisted it was, to the point of having her committed to a mental institution for refusing to accept her son. So what the heck happened?
Just throwing this in there, do you know that this actually happened a few times, where somebody has come back pretending, actually, to be a child that disappeared 10 years earlier or whatever?
Yeah, well, this was only 5 months, so it was pretty... anyway... But yes, I have heard of that. Mm-hmm. Christine, I'm going to start with mom. She was born in 1888. She married an ex-con who lied about his identity, and he's actually married her under an assumed name. Had her son Walter in 1908. She was 20 years old. So on March 10th, her husband is in jail for robbery. He's actually in Folsom Prison, which always makes me think of Johnny Cash. So she gave Walter money to go to the movies, and never saw him again. So the case, for whatever reason, this really caught the eye of the public and of the media and got nationwide attention.
It's always interesting how that happens with some, and others you'll just never hear about.
Yeah. Because it didn't give a reason why at this point.
Yeah, because this wasn't a rich kid.
No.
Which often will make bigger news.
This wasn't the Lindbergh baby.
No.
The police followed hundreds of leads with no success. And people would report they saw a child being stolen by a foreign couple, or they saw a child who matched his description, but nothing panned out. So in October, the following October, a boy claiming to be Walter was found in DeKalb, Illinois. So after exchanging letters and photographs, Christine paid for the boy to come to LA. Which really made me question, why would she have to pay for him to come to LA? It's because my thought is, if it's an active police investigation, and if it went across state lines, why wouldn't the police or some kind of federal agency just pay to have him returned? And I'm like, and why didn't she rush there? If you told me you found my child, so I'm thinking she probably suspected something right off the bat. Because I'm like, why is she hesitating? What did she know or suspect?
Right. There's something more.
Right. Which I don't have an answer to. I have, you know me, I like asking questions.
Yeah.
I don't always have the answers. So when they're reunited, Christine immediately says, "This is not my son." The officer in charge, a Captain J.J. Jones, convinced her that she should take the boy home and try him out. That was the phrase, in quotes.
Well, you know, because women are so fickle and stupid. They wouldn't recognize their own child.
Apparently. But so she does. Against her better judgment, she does. So 3 weeks later, she takes him back to the police station and says, "No, this is not my son." She has dental records proving this is not her son. Jones labeled her a bad mother, the police captain, and had her committed to the psych ward of the LA County Hospital under a Code 12, which is, and I quote, "a term used to jail or commit someone who is deemed difficult or an inconvenience."
It was very inconvenient that she didn't want to keep the child that was not hers.
Yeah, and let it marinate. Let that one marinate. She's inconvenient because, of course, she doesn't have a husband to stand up for her. She does have one, but he's in jail. Mm-hmm. So you aren't playing by... You won't follow our storyline, so...
We want this to be done. We need everybody to know that we solved this case.
So apparently, even then, so we're talking the 1920s, the LAPD is under investigation for all kinds of scandals and problems and...
Well, you know, it's LA. I mean, ugh.
So when questioned, the boy admitted to being Arthur Hutchins Jr., a runaway from Iowa. And when he was picked up by police, they noticed that there was a resemblance and asked him if he was Walter. And apparently he said no, and then he changed his mind and said yes, because he wanted to go to Hollywood and meet a movie star.
Great.
Specifically, he wanted to meet Tom Mix, which I don't think ever happened. But after he confessed, it took another 10 days for Christine to be released from the psych ward. And I believe it took outside intervention.
I'm sure it did.
A minister who took up her cause and campaigned to help get her released.
Well, thank goodness. Nobody likes an irrational woman.
Yeah. She successfully sued Jones and was awarded $10,800, which he never paid.
Of course not.
She took him back to court and sued him again. They found in her favor again, and he still refused to pay. Fucker. So, okay, so we're going to jump tracks for a minute. And sadly, these two stories are going to come together. So, now we're going to go to Gordon Stewart Northcott, who was born in Canada in 1906. He moved with his parents to LA in 1924, so he would have been 18 at the time when he moved. At some point, he convinced his father to purchase land in Wineville, California. Interestingly enough, after all this is over, in 1930, Wineville changed its name to Miraloma.
Oh!
They completely changed the name of the town because of this case. Mm-hmm. And it's now been incorporated into East Vale and Jurupa Valley, which I apologize if I am mispronouncing. No. I did.
Jurupa.
I don't know. So he convinced his father to help him build a house and a chicken coop, a chicken farm, chicken ranch. I didn't know they were called ranches, but...
Chicken home, chicken farm, chicken crate, chicken...
So, while they were doing this construction, he brought his nephew, his, I want to say 14, 15-year-old nephew down from Canada. The nephew's name is Sanford. So he moves him down to help with building and to help work on the ranch. Well, that's a reason, back then especially, that was a very reasonable thing to do. So according to Murderpedia, which had a very much more flamboyant take than Wikipedia, so I'm just so you know, Northcott was a busy man they labeled him a homosexual sadist.
Okay.
So they claim that he was abducting boys, hiding them on his ranch, and renting them out to wealthy pedophiles. What they didn't explain was how an 18-year-old had a connection, or 20, he was 18, 19, 20 when all this was happening, how he connected with and had business dealings with wealthy pedophiles.
Yeah.
To me, that was a missing piece of...
Anyway. A lot of wealthy pedophiles in California.
I don't know. Perhaps they're standing up. Perhaps they have a club. I don't know. They claim he was eventually undone when the authorities decided to investigate his treatment of his nephew. Mm-hmm. So, but when you go back to Wikipedia, what happened was Sanford's family was worried about him. So his big sister came down to visit and apparently witnessed Northcutt had been physically and sexually abusing his nephew.
Yeah, this is the version I've heard in the past.
Yes. So when his sister Jessie came to visit to check on his welfare, Sanford told her he feared for his life. He told her that 4 boys had been murdered in the chicken coop. He took them in. He would take them in to see the hatchlings, the baby chicks, and kill them. I don't know if that was supposed to be nice. Children. Yeah. Children is right, because they were young, and he would torture them and abuse them, and then kill them when he was tired of them. But he let him see the baby chicks before he killed them, so...
Well, you know what? That makes up for everything.
That makes him practically a humanitarian. And apparently, the sister, Jessie, was also afraid of her uncle. So when she was able to leave, when she got back to Canada, she told her parents what was going on, and her mother reported Sanford's claims to the American consulate, who wrote a letter to the LAPD. They deemed it an immigration problem, so the case went to the U.S. Immigration Service to investigate.
God damn it, LAPD.
I'm like, hello, dead bodies. That really? So anyway.
They just didn't want to be doing anything. Apparently. They didn't want to actually be finding a child. They did.
So in August of 1928, 2 customs officials drive out to visit the ranch, and they want to speak with Sanford, and they also want to speak with Northcutt. He sees the car coming and apparently recognizes it, and so he threatens Sanford, tells him, you stall the officials as long as you can because I'm going to be in the edge of the woods, and if you don't stall them, I'm going to shoot you. He's been bullying and forcing Sanford to be complicit in a lot of really nasty shit. So Sanford is terrified. He stalls the immigration people for 2 hours. It took 2 hours before he felt safe enough to tell them that he would surrender to them and tell them that Northcutt was in the woods. And Northcutt kept running. So he and his mother fled to Canada, but were apprehended in mid-September. So there's this thing on Murderpedia that says there is a rumor that Northcutt was raised as a girl. Was that his mother dressed him in girls' clothing.
I believe I'd heard that.
However,
rumor too, but
they have pictures of him as a child. He's very clearly dressed as a boy.
Okay.
So I don't know. There was couldn't find that on any of the other sites.
There are constantly rumors about that having been a thing in that era. You know, like it comes up a surprising amount back then.
It does.
And why? Was it that common, or was this a fear that people had, or...
I don't know.
It blows my mind every time I hear it.
You wanted a daughter, so
right?
I don't know.
You don't have birth control yet. Just pop some more out.
So, when they take Mom and Northcutt into custody, the case gets just fucking twistier. If that's even possible. Both of them confessed, and then recanted, and then confessed. I mean, to various parts of these horrible, hideous crimes, trying to protect each other. So it's hard to know exactly how many boys Northcutt tortured and raped and killed. He was convicted of 3. They believe there were 4 for sure, but he confessed to as many as 20. Sanford put the number at 4, including a young Mexican man whose head had been removed and destroyed. This body was the only full body they found.
Gotcha.
Because when the authorities went to the chicken ranch, they did find 3 shallow graves near the chicken coop, exactly where Sanford had said they would be. Because that's a big deal. People confessing and saying the grave is here, and then the authorities are like, there's nothing here.
Right.
So it really lends you credibility when you can accurately tell them where the bodies are buried.
But their full bodies weren't in it?
No, none of them contained complete bodies, but there was evidence that there were bits of bone. They used quicklime. So there were bits of bone and evidence enough to give Northcott's mother a life sentence and to give Northcott himself a death sentence.
Good.
Now, so besides the Mexican young man, Lewis and Nelson Winslow, who were 12 and 10 years old, are believed to be the two other victims that they found remains of. They went missing on May 16th of 1928 in Pomona, California. And in fact, when Northcutt was being held in between conviction and sentencing, the Winslow father led a lynch mob to the Riverside County Jail where he was being held. But the local police were able to convince the mob to disperse. Because they were just going to pull him out and hang him.
I mean, sometimes...
I don't argue with that. During Mrs. Northcott's sentencing hearing, she said there were so many things that were said. She said that the entire family had sexually abused Northcutt as a child.
Including her?
Apparently. She said his father was an English nobleman. She also claimed that he was not really her son, he was her grandson, and he was the product of an incestuous relationship between her daughter and her husband.
Ugh.
Yeah, that squeaky face, I was all, ugh. And apparently Northcutt also said he was sexually abused by his father.
Okay.
Which is entirely possible because there's a huge correlation.
Yes.
So, however, she confessed to abducting and killing Walter Collins. Remember Walter?
Oh,
we were talking about it.
Remember Walter?
Remember Walter? And they're now, like, Murderpedia has a picture of what are shoes that match the description of what Walter was wearing, and they were found at the house. So technically, Northcutt couldn't be tried for that murder because his mother had already confessed and been sentenced for it.
That's why 3 for him, even though...
Yes.
Okay.
So he was sentenced to death for the 3 other murders and was hanged at San Quentin in October of 1930. He was 24 years old. Wow.
He was an accomplished 24-year-old in terms of murder.
While incarcerated, he confessed. People would come to interview him. He confessed to all kinds of grisly torture and abuse and murder of as many as 20 young men. And he would promise to reveal the location of the bodies and then refuse at the last minute.
He's like Henry Lee Lucas or whoever.
Yes.
I'm just going to confess to whatever.
Yeah. He was believed, they now think he was a pathological liar who wanted attention. And there's absolutely no way to tell if it was just those 4 or how many other lost souls out there.
Or if he'd done it before he had the farm. Or
yes.
Because if the graves were that obvious and the nephew or whatever only thought it was those 4, then unless he did it before the nephew got there or he was doing it elsewhere, then it sounds like it was the 4.
Right. Well, now there was a boy later. A boy and his parents came forward, and the parents had reported the boy missing around this time. And he claims he was there, but he escaped. And Sanford never said that there had been a boy who escaped. So they don't know whether to believe him or not.
Yeah. And, like, why didn't you go to the police then?
So, sadly, not only the psychological torture, he fucked with Christine Collins many, many times. He met with her more than once. He would tell her he did it. He killed her son. Then he would tell her, I will tell you the truth. I never laid a hand on him. I never saw him. He was never at my place. He went back and forth, and she concluded that he was insane.
Yeah. As
in completely batshit, bug-fuck, banana sandwich crazy. So because of this, she held out hope that her son was still alive. So shortly before his Northcott's execution, he contacted her and he said, I will give you all the details of your son's death if you will visit me in person before I'm put to death. So she went, because you do. You would. And when she arrived, he again claimed innocence and said he wouldn't see her. He was just fucking with her. And I wrote, what a magnitude of human excrement this man was. So,
like she hadn't already been through enough.
Right. So she never, for the rest of her life, she searched for her son. She never gave that up. However, what happened to Sanford? I want to end at least on a slightly positive note.
Okay.
Because, I mean, torture and rape and murder is not a happy time. Despite his involvement at the chicken ranch, it was determined that he was a victim of Northcutt's death threats and physical abuse and not a willing participant, which I'm like, oh my God, they got something right. He was sentenced, which is kind of not the right word, but I'm going with it, to go to the Whittier State School for 5 years. It was an experimental program for delinquent youths, with a focus on rehabilitation. And the thing was, he did so well there. He impressed the trustees of the school so much with his wanting to be a productive member of society that he was released after 2 years. He lived out his life in Saskatchewan, which is a bugger to spell. I had to kept looking at it like twice. He lived out his life in Saskatchewan, where he died in 1991 at the age of 78.
Wow.
So I'm sure he carried the scars of what happened to him forever, but it sounds like he was able to make a good life.
Something.
Have a life.
All right. So this one is the darker. Warned you at the beginning. So the sources: Wikipedia, Murderpedia, ThoughtCo, and Crime Museum. Hey, I had this ThoughtCo one. That one's different.
What was it?
ThoughtCo.
I've never heard of ThoughtCo.
This is about the Vampire of Sacramento. Richard Trenton Chase was born May 23rd, 1950 in Sacramento, California. So thus, Vampire of Sacramento. He would become known as the Vampire of Sacramento, the Dracula Killer, and the Vampire Killer due to a short-lived killing spree and his strange obsession with blood. He was clearly unwell in his youth. I think it's called the McDonald Triad. He exhibited this, and it's the one that you've heard of that's kind of been disproven at this point. But what they always said, you knew he was going to be a serial killer because he set fires, wet his bed into a late age, and tortured small animals. Right. So he did exhibit all of these. He got into heavy drug use as a teenager, and then he developed hypochondria. Some of the things he mentioned, I'm just going to list them from Wikipedia that he did, were to shave his head because he thought his cranial bones were disconnecting and moving around, holding oranges on his head so he could absorb the vitamin C, complaining of his heart not beating sometimes, and claiming someone had stolen his pulmonary artery. He actually went to the emergency room and said, somebody stole my pulmonary artery. Oh. Other articles mentioned that he thought his blood was turning to powder, and there's actually a whole reason behind it involving UFOs and Nazis, actually.
Did he wear a tinfoil hat?
He did not.
I'm shocked.
He had other ways of keeping this. And that he thought his stomach was backward. His stomach had turned backward. These claims were documented, again, because he'd go to the emergency room and be like, listen, my stomach is backward. So they had these complaints documented. His dad was abusive. And both of his parents were pretty rigid, I guess. He thought at one point his mom was trying to poison him. So he moved out with some friends, and he was always on drugs or drunk. He was taking LSD, which when you're already being a hypochondriac, adding hallucinations to that, not great. He would apparently walk around nude in the apartment when they had company over any time.
I had a roommate who would do that.
I mean, I would do that if there's nobody here.
No, she would actually come out in a towel whenever I had a date stop by to pick me up, and I was like...
Conveniently.
I was like, okay, bitch. We had a little chat about that, and she stopped doing it.
Good. She really needed some attention, huh?
Yes, she did.
Yes, she did.
And I gave her the kind she didn't want.
Yeah. His friends they tried to get him to leave, he refused, so they all left.
Oh, that's bad.
They were out. So there he was in the apartment all by himself with nobody else there. It gave him the opportunity to start killing small animals. And he would take their organs. He would drink their blood. He'd make smoothies. One of his favorites was to take some of their organs and make Coke smoothies. I'm sure this is the branding that Coca-Cola wants.
Okay, not cocaine.
Not cocaine. Coca-Cola smoothies.
So it's more of a slushy.
Yes.
Ew.
These were to keep his heart from shrinking. Because he felt his heart was shrinking. He was very worried.
So he was a reverse Grinch.
Yes. He would also eat the animals raw. At one point, he used a missing poster to call the family and tell them what he'd done to their dog. Oh. That's horrible.
That's awful.
I will say it sounds like he would kill that. Like, he wasn't torturing anything while they were alive as far as I could find. I find this reassuring, so I'm putting it out there.
Yes.
And this includes once he moves to humans. He seemed to kill them pretty quickly. Everything he did was after. Okay?
Oh, the fact
it's bad, but it's good.
The fact that there's an everything.
Yeah.
Not...
So he ends up moving back home. He can't afford the apartment by himself. He moves home, but his dad ends up kicking him back out, and he pays for his next apartment. So that...
Okay, that sounds familiar.
The Twitter killer's dad did it.
Ah, okay, that was where... I was like, who else is...
Yeah, we don't want your problems in our house. We're going to outsource you to the public. So he was in and out of mental hospitals. Obs. In 1976, he was involuntarily committed, and they diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia. The reason he was committed... He had injected rabbit blood directly into his veins, and he got blood poisoning. So he ends up at the hospital, and he's telling, I had to inject the blood because my blood is turning to powder, and my heart is shrinking, and you don't understand, I need the blood so that I don't turn to powder. And they're like, we're just going to call somebody, okie dokie.
We're going to keep you here a little while.
Yeah, and then the men in white jackets came. So while in the hospital... he exhibited Renfield syndrome. At one point, they walk in, he's covered in blood. The orderlies, well, he's got it covered. He's got it on his face and his hands. And outside his window, there were bars, but there was, like, I guess no screen. He had captured 2 birds.
Oh.
And he had snapped their necks and sucked their blood out. And then threw their little bodies back outside. So, at this point, they were already calling him Dracula. Because he had an obvious... obsession. He actually stole syringes.
Well, he is more of a Renfield, but anyway.
He is. He stole some syringes at the hospital, and then when they brought therapy dogs in, if he got to spend time with them, he would extract blood with the syringes so that he could drink the blood. Because, he still was going to turn to powder. His blood was still turning to powder, and his heart was still shrinking. It doesn't go away because you're committed. Hello.
Oh, God.
The staff were really freaked out by him. It gets decided to let him back out. And the staff were like, no. They still do.
Oh, my God.
So, but they put him on psychotropic drugs first. I mean, they tried certain things, didn't work. So they actually felt that it was like a drug-induced form of psychosis that had happened.
Okay.
But at the same time, he wasn't taking drugs except for theirs. Well, anyway, they released him. He's on psychotropic drugs. This is 1976. His mother... He's put under their care. It's official. It's documented. They're supposed to be taking care of him. His mother decides he doesn't need these medications. She weans him off, all the meds, and then she pays to move him into a new apartment.
Mom.
And that's right. She bought him groceries. So in 1977, he's arrested on a reservation in Nevada, naked and covered in blood. His clothes are on the seat next to him, along with 2 rifles, I think, with a bucket of blood containing a liver in the back of his ranchero. So it turns out it's cow's blood. So
Is
first when they arrest him... Yes.
Okay.
I'm like, let's nobody pay attention to the fact that somewhere there was a cow without a liver. Like, so he'd obviously left a dead cow somewhere.
Yeah.
But anyway, he tells them at first it's his blood. It's been leaking out. He tells them. So they arrest him. But anyway, it had to be a big liver to be a cow's, so...
Yeah.
Anyway, they do determine that it's cow, and they let him go without charges.
Because that's normal.
That's what
driving
you do.
around with a bucket of blood.
That's right.
With a liver
naked.
Bobbing in it. Naked.
And he was actually like out of the car when they found him, and he was like running around naked and covered in blood.
Oh, God.
December 29th, 1977. I was all of a month old. He killed Ambrose Griffin. So this is his first killing of a human.
Okay.
A 51-year-old man who was just helping his wife put away the groceries out in his driveway. And it's a drive-by shooting. His wife says her husband yelled something to somebody. She heard 2 pop-pops that she didn't associate with it. She sees her husband crumpled to the ground. She thinks he's had a heart attack. And it's not until they get to the emergency room that they find out he's been shot.
Ah.
And then they did recover the shell casings. They were from 22s.
So he drove by and shot.
Yeah, she never saw the person who shot him. Didn't have anybody to associate with because she thought he just had a heart attack. Then 2 other people reported someone had shot at them that day too, but missed. One was a preteen boy, and the other was a woman inside her home. The bullet had gone into the house. Okay. And they did recover a 22 bullet. They recovered casings outside.
Is he just randomly driving around?
Yes. And later he would say something along the lines of, oh, he was just driving around shooting in the air because he was mad at his mom or something. It's like, you weren't shooting in the air.
No.
You don't shoot into a window. You don't shoot a dude in his driveway if you're just shooting into the air. Unless it goes, whoop, like you always see in the Westerns when they're firing in the air. And I'm like, yeah, how many of you would actually have some hot lead in your skull right now? So each time it was a 22 that was used. January 23rd, 1978. So it's just under a month after his first killing. After at least one break-in in the neighborhood where he defecated on the baby's bed and peed in a drawer full of the baby's clothes. He shot a pregnant woman named Teresa Wallen in her home. She was 3 months pregnant, I think. Dragged her into her bedroom. Had sex with her body. Disemboweled her. Stabbed her repeatedly. Drank her blood using a yogurt cup. She'd been walking out the door when he came up, taking out the garbage. And he just walked in, shut the door, shot her in the head. I think she had a couple shots, so she was dead when he started all this. Used the yogurt cup to drink her blood. And he cut off her nipple. He took out organs and severed them. This is a big thing for him. And they felt that he was trying to get at the organs because he thought different ones were going to give him different, he wanted to drink the blood, eat the organs. He then placed her kidneys back inside after he'd finished. He then went, and it said that, I don't know how they know this, so that's why I didn't initially say it, but it said he was stabbing her body while he was having sex with her. There was a lot of knife damage, even though she was already dead. He then went into her yard, they had a German Shepherd, collected dog poop, and shoved it down her throat, which is just like, come on. If you're claiming that you're killing this person for this reason, why do you have to do this?
Yeah, that's yeah.
Quit pretending. At some point, he left a .22 caliber bullet in her mailbox. So a bunch of things said he did it before he went in, and I'm like, how the fuck do you know when he did it?
Yeah, how? No.
If he'd been leaving them as promises other places, then I might buy he did it ahead of time. But whatever. There was a .22 caliber bullet in the mailbox. There were also bloody rings on the floor around Teresa's body, so that it indicated to them that he'd collected blood in something like a bucket or something like that. It had been moved, and there were these rings. And I did see a picture, like a crime scene picture of that. A nearby house had found one of their puppies dead, and this was shortly after a disheveled man, which he certainly was at this point, by the way, had adopted 2 of the other puppies from them, saying he didn't care if they were male or female, just give me 2 dogs. So he ultimately took 3 of their poor puppies. And this is, that's how he found them a lot, is ads of people, selling or giving away animals. 4 days later, speaking of that, I had a cat. We had to adopt him out for reasons. We'd taken him in, and it was meant to be temporary because he was being abused at another temporary home. So we took him in, and he marked everywhere because we already had male cats. And the person actually disappeared and moved out of state instead of taking their pet. So we're stuck with this poor sweet cat that tried to sit on my baby's faces because he was jealous of the attention and fight with other cats. So anyway, we found a home. And they were grandparents, and they sent us updates and pictures. Aww. But anyway, when we had this ad out, because we were just trying to find him a home, we had people calling us. A bunch of people would call in the ad and say, don't do this because they're going to come and steal your pets, and they're just trying to get them for scientific experiments and all this stuff, and you need to find another way to find a new home. So like all these people would call us and bitched us for placing an ad. Yeah. Oh, I just remember that. And then I was like paranoid forever. So when the new people sent a photo of him, I was like, oh, thank you. Anyway, 4 days later, he killed Evelyn Miroth. I think she was 38. Her friend Dan Meredith, who was there, he was in his 50s. Her 6-year-old son and her 22-month-old nephew. But this is complicated, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. Each of them were killed with a .22. He shot them all. I think the man died first. Her little boy, the 6-year-old, was found on the floor on the side of her bed with 2 shots to the head. I mean, he did it. At the very least, if I'm going to tell a story like this, at least they were dead before he did stuff. So anyway, he, of course, with just the woman at this point, mutilated her, had sex with her body. They showed that he'd used the knife in unfortunate ways to also have sex with her. Cannibalized her corpse, tried to remove an eye. He slit her throat. He took out her organs. He did his usual. It was believed she'd been taking a bath and he dragged her out of the bathroom because she was completely nude. And the other woman, her clothes were pulled up and down. So this one didn't have any clothes on her. And there was water in the bath. So he fled. Somebody had knocked on the door and he fled in, it's either, some of the stories said her car, some said Dan Meredith's. Most of them said Dan Meredith. So it was his car from the front. He fled in that car when he was interrupted. But he had left behind, he was a very disorganized offender, as they say. He didn't necessarily plan where he was going. In fact, I mention it later. But his thing was to find a victim. He just decided he was going to go find a victim that day. When they found his calendar, it would just say today.
Oh.
So on the 2 murders he committed, it just said today. He had 44 other dates in the future that had today written on them. So that's how far he'd planned out. So, and again, this all happened in a month.
Wow.
So anyway, he would just go and try doors. If the door was unlocked, he was meant to go in. If the door was locked,
that's why I keep my door locked.
No shit. Our door auto locks behind us. We have a code so that if that door shuts, because my aunt was attacked by a neighbor with a garden hoe, and he followed her in when she went in with groceries. My kids were little when this happened, so it's been over a decade.
Right.
But it was an absolutely horrific attack. The man was not mentally well, and they still live in that house. They knew the neighbors. They knew that the neighbors had tried to get the kid committed, something done about him, but it doesn't work that way.
No, it does not.
Until the day he followed her in and viciously attacked her with a hoe.
For no reason.
So, yeah, my doors have always gotten locked behind, even before that happened, really, but that really reinforced it.
Yep.
But yeah, he was like, if the door was unlocked, I was meant to go in there. So when he walked in on her right as she was walking out with the garbage at the one house, you know? So anyway, the 22-month-old's body was not there when they got there. So that's why I said that one is complicated. So they did end up getting to track him down. One, because of several witnesses that saw him. They didn't see him like fleeing the murder or anything, but they saw a man with like a bloody shirt. He'd been around the neighborhood a lot. He actually lived right near there.
Oh, Jesus.
And he left behind handprints and shoe prints that were very clear at both of the crimes. So the playpen was there. She was just babysitting the 22-month-old. It was her nephew. The playpen was bloody. There was a little pillow in it that had a bullet hole in it. The body was gone. It was later determined that brain matter in the tub belonged to the baby. He had been trying to extract it and some had fallen.
Oh.
Again, it was dead first, but there were once again rings on the carpet, so he had taken something home with him. And from the sound of it, he took organs with him. Sometimes, you know, he took the parts with him to have later to nosh on for a snacky snack. Of note, the knock that interrupted him and sent him fleeing was likely a neighbor child. The 6-year-old was supposed to be going to a friend's house. So when the 6-year-old didn't show up, the mom was like, hey, go over and see what's going on.
Right.
Little girl knocked on the door, said she saw movement inside, but nobody answered the door. So she went home and said, well, I don't know, nobody answered the door. And that's eventually what led to the house being checked by an adult. Then went over because then nobody heard from him. Child never came over. They weren't answering the phone. With poor Teresa, while in the previous victim, her husband walked in on her, on the body, and found her like that. Jesus. German Shepherd was fine, which is odd considering, but it was very much about kill the woman and destroy her body at this point. So again, it's not about your powder blood, you liar. So anyway, that child was very lucky.
Yeah.
Because if she saw movement, he was still there. So that I was like, holy shit, I hope she knows, like,
that
for
is
the
so
rest
terrifying.
of her life. But, yeah, so aside from the prints, like I mentioned, other people recognized him. He actually had come across recently a woman he'd gone to school with who didn't recognize him at first. And so she was like, I saw him, he was wearing this orange parka or whatever. There was blood on it. He looked pale and emaciated, and his hair was long and a mess. And, yeah. So, and then an 11-year-old girl had seen him around too. And so all these things ultimately led them to him. They get to his apartment. They find the .22 that he's used. They find other weapons. They find some knives. Various pet collars.
Oh.
Yeah. Bloody blender. Dan Meredith's wallet. who was the man whose car he'd stolen.
Right.
Articles about the Hillside Strangler. He was apparently quite fascinated with him. A calendar with today written on it, like I mentioned before. An anatomy book with overlays of the organs so you could turn the page. And like, oh, without this one, with it. Yay! Organs in the fridge. You know, there were dishes that had the blood grime in them. It was not clean. The entire apartment smelled like blood and rot because he wasn't cleaning up.
Oh my God.
And he's killing all these things, and he's bringing home blood and organs. So they did end up finding the mummified remains of the toddler. It was later. I think it was in March. And it was in a box in a church parking lot. So they didn't find the baby until after he'd already been arrested, I think. And the keys to the car that he'd stolen were underneath it. So, same baby. He said he'd taken the infant to his house, that he'd, shot him at the house. Oh. He had started taking him apart. That's when he got interrupted. So he'd already finished with the mom.
Oh, God.
And that's why there was brain matter. Because he apparently, tried to remove the top of the head so that he could then put the baby upside down in a bucket and drain the blood more. I don't know. There was some stuff. Anyway, that he continued mutilating the baby at home and dumped the body after. While he obviously, his lawyers, they tried to plead him not guilty by reason of insanity.
Yeah.
He was found guilty in May 1979 for 6 counts of first-degree murder. In fact, the court psychiatrist didn't feel he was schizophrenic. Anyway, instead he felt he had antisocial personality disorder. There's that one again. I really need to do some research on antisocial personality, because if they keep using it for all these serial killers, then it doesn't mean what it sounds like it means, I guess, is what I'm seeing here. So Chase had admitted to feeling bad about the killings. He was convinced his victims were going to come back from the dead and get him.
I wish they would have.
Yeah. In addition, he gave the excuse that he'd started killing people because he was sexually impotent as a teenager. He was like, I think it's because I was sexually impotent and couldn't perform with the girls, and, I felt bad about that. And I'm like, no, stop. It was reported that he was impotent, and it was most likely the drug use. I mean, he was sentenced to die in the gas chamber. He continued to rave about things like Nazis and UFOs. He felt they were working together. When Robert Ressler from the FBI met with him and talked to him afterwards, he told him all about the Nazis and the UFOs and the blood turning to powder and all of this stuff. He also slid across some macaroni and cheese he was hiding in his pants pockets, and he said, get this tested. I think they're trying to poison me. Ultimately, he committed suicide by saving his antidepressants. They were given these little 3-packs with his antidepressants, which is funny. Well, not funny, but I'm surprised that there wasn't give him the one tablet.
Where was this?
1979. So 1980.
So things have changed a lot since then.
Yes. So he just kept saving them instead of taking them. And then he took them all at once. So he was 30 years old. It was less than a year. Well, it was a year and a half after he was found guilty. The inmates, he had told Robert Ressler when he went in there that the inmates hated him. I mean, they were scared as hell of this guy, right? He was creepy. And so they kept telling him to kill himself. Kill yourself, kill yourself. And so they're like, did he do it? Because everybody was constantly telling him to kill himself, or what? Other things he talked to Robert Ressler about, he mentioned that if he went to a house and the door was locked, so that's when that came out afterwards, that meant he shouldn't go in. He admitted that he brought back pieces of his victims to eat. And again, he did the whole, it's to keep my blood from turning to powder. I swear it. It later came out that his mother, he had killed her cat and stood there in her living room sucking its blood out, and she didn't do anything about it. And in fact, when he was being tried, she did not believe them and felt that he was not guilty, that he hadn't hurt anybody because that wasn't who he was. And he had killed her cat and drank its blood in front of her before when he was living there.
Bitch, please.
Right. Like, Ma Barker. No. But, exaggerated. And remember, she was the one who weaned him off medication because he didn't need it. So, good Lord.
I do have a thought.
Uh-huh.
Because Thing One does listen to our podcast.
Oh, yeah?
So perhaps she could tell us what antisocial personality disorder is.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Can I tell you a story she told us?
Yes.
So she works at a psych hospital, and I can tell right now she's listening to this going, oh my God, what is my mother going to say? Nothing bad. And she said she heard a noise on the ward. And she goes, now I know what it sounds like when somebody's banging their head against the wall, or they've fallen down, or I know what this sounds like, or they're banging on the door. And she goes, this was different. This was a clanging sound. Somebody had actually worked the handicap rail off the wall and was banging on the door with it. But they did get him to slide it out through the food pass.
That's good. All right.
So, yes, they did tell him he couldn't keep it. And she was just like, that was a real what the fuck moment.
Like, how long did it take him to work off the...
Right? I'm just like, who would even... But, yeah. So I was
times.
Yeah.
Good times at the mental hospital. Could have been worse, I guess. Or at least he was all, oh, sure, I'm done banging. You can have my my part.
Are you sure? But I want to keep it.
Well, we're not going to feed you until you give us the part.
Yes.
I don't know if they're allowed to withhold. There's a lot of rule. I don't know. As a CNA,
there are a lot of rules.
Yes, because you can't do anything that's cruel and unusual, of course, and you can't, like, restraints is very tricky in a nursing home situation.
Well, I just recently discovered, because a mutual friend of ours had a parent in the hospital, and he asked if they could put the bed rail up at night.
Yes. And
they said no, and he was
it's like, a restraint.
It's a restraint. And it took me a while, and I reached out to him and I said, you know what? When my mom was in the nursing home and she had broken her hip, we asked the same question, can the bed rail be put up, and got the same response. For the same reason, it's considered
that was probably the most surprising, bit of information that I got learning to be when I was getting my CNA certification, which, by the way, I'm officially not now. I let it expire because I don't. Yeah. You have to have a job to keep it going.
Yes.
And my job died almost 2 years ago. So, but yeah, so I'm not a CNA anymore. I'm a little bit sad, but I mean, it's not like I was doing anything with it anymore. But yeah, the learning about the restraint thing, and it also went to when I was working in CSD, which was communications and social delays at an elementary school, which was primarily autism. It wasn't just, but that's really what we were working with most of the time. And the rules changed near the end of my tenure because I worked up until like a month before my son was born. And the rules on how we could restrain in that situation had also very much changed because of the whole, even contact rules had changed a lot. But yeah, learning that you couldn't use restraints. I mean, I'm like, all right, well, let's just let elderly people flop out and do all this because heaven forbid we be restraining them. So that was all very confusing. We got the reasons, but
yeah, you get it, but don't get it at the same time.
Yeah.
So
I can't strap somebody into this wheelchair even though she likes to slide out and bonk her head. Okay, cool. Then.
Yep.
What do you want me to do then? So yeah, it's all very interesting. I don't think people realize unless they've been in a situation, and then you learn and you're like, oh, okay.
And you go, what? And you just say, wait, what? But yeah, I can only imagine, at the nursing home my mom was in, there was a very nice woman who worked there who dealt with insurance and state agencies. And I was in awe because I was like, how the fuck do you even begin to keep up with it? Because everything changes. It seems like your insurance changes daily.
Yeah. I
mean, I can't remember which insurance we had. I take thyroid medication. I don't feel uncomfortable saying that. But every month when I went into the grocery store to the pharmacy to pick it up, every month it was a different price. Now, it didn't fluctuate hugely. It wasn't like one month it was $9 and the next it was $42, but it was like this month it is $12.79 and the next month it was $13.50.
supply and demand.
I was like, what the? And I just would look at the pharmacist and be like, why? They would just shrug.
Yeah. I think there's a lot we don't know about pharmaceutical stuff either, that just all the little things that you don't think about.
Yeah.
Like, I never realized, I always assumed that it was the same price everywhere I went. It wasn't until I got that GoodRx app or whatever that I learned that everywhere is charged a different price, and Walgreens, where I've been going forever, is like the most expensive place ever. And I'm like, damn, that's years of cheaper medications I could have been getting. That was with insurance. I mean, it was still...
Yeah, you would think with insurance it would be the same.
No. So confusing. So many little things in this world you don't understand until you deal with them, and they're happening all around you all the time. You don't know.
It's like when you are getting a mortgage and you start talking about points.
Whoa.
Now, when we were getting a mortgage, I understood it. I couldn't tell you now what points are if you...
Yeah, I even did that. It was covered when I was doing a finance class, and now I'm right back to being like, doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to work in the mortgage industry, so it's already, I passed that test. It's gone.
I'm like, I'm going to pay what? Just
explain.
Could you explain that like 4 more times?
Yeah, I remember that every time, like, points, and it's this, and
I got it.
Can I just have a loan?
And when it was so funny because even while we were in the process, I was like, I probably even looked at Joe and said, you know what? I'm not going to, as soon as we buy the house, I'm going to forget what the hell points are. Yeah. He was like, it's okay. You can. You can, because
you don't have to. Hey, I have already admitted on here that finance was my least favorite class so far of this entire degree. And it is not for me. And yay for those people it is for.
What class are you taking now?
Organizational behavior. So it's kind of a mix of psychology, which is what my associates is in, and business stuff. So it's pretty interesting. It's like analyzing people and the big 5 traits, which is the thing they use. That's not are you a INTJ, blah, blah, blah. The Myers-Briggs is the most popular. The big 5 personality traits are coming up, and it's like your level of openness, your level of conscientiousness, your level of extrovert. So there's 5 traits that they look at now. And then it's 5 billion different theories about how people work and how to work with people. Basically, like, how do I make it so these employees are happy and they want to do this thing and they... It's complicated. And then when you look at it, I'm actually thinking about doing a craft book based off of some of it. Just like, here are some other things to consider when you're building characters, but also on the international differences are fascinating because, you know, Americans are highly individualistic, probably like number 1 on the entire globe. But you go to, say, China, and it's considered collectivistic. And so how they manage and what will work if you're, say, an American working at a Chinese company, very different. How you appeal to people, because being a collectivistic society, it's not what's best for me. It's what's best for everyone. And in America, we're me. And
there's the whole personal space.
Oh, yeah. There's so much stuff to that. So that's why I was like, I want to gather all that information and like put it, like, if you're writing a book... Yeah,
that would be great to have.
So I've already started taking notes and stuff, but it's going to take a lot more research. But it's like the don't shake this person's hand in this country, and because they use that hand for something.
Now, smart companies will have training.
Yeah, I actually had a class that went over like what kind of training should happen, what's available. There's stuff where even they'll put you in, they'll have a complex or a neighborhood, perhaps in the new place that's heavily these people, and they kind of throw you in there like, all right, now survive.
Well,
and then you go out and you've learned the language, and it's
like if you know someone who's working abroad, like in, I don't know, Abu Dhabi, but you have there's like a neighborhood where or you know, an apartment complex where you have a lot of
expats,
expats, a lot of Americans or a lot of people who aren't from there, so they can have some home there maybe, or
Well, it's fascinating. That is like people have a lot of issues coming back home after it. It's actually a bigger issue. And some of them end up quitting the job and just moving back to the country because they've adapted that thoroughly to a new country. Or, you know, maybe you get there and you think it's better. I don't know, but
that could be.
So, that was today. I guess at least we ended that on a completely unrelated note.
Yeah, we had to do something.
We did.
Can't just be like...
They were pretty heavy stories right there.
Death, dismemberment...
Psychopathology.
Yes.
Cuckoo birds. Oh, yeah, I'm not allowed to say it. Guess what? I'm not a doctor. I can say it. They're cuckoo birds.
Yes.
Crazy.
Or as I said, batshit bug fuck banana sandwich.
That's
crazy.
right.
Sometimes I just abbreviate that to banana sandwich.
Yes. But we know what it implies.
Yes.
All right. Well, you can find us on Facebook. Oh, and we're on Instagram now. Totally forgot
That's
to say
right.
that.
We are on Instagram.
So we'll be putting the photos there and maybe some extra photos once I adapt to switching back and forth between accounts and stuff. But at the very least, the pictures we post on Facebook will be appearing there by the time this airs.
And I have been posting photographs.
I
finally.
I saw that you did, Debbie.
Yes. I was like, I feel really bad. So I finally did it.
And like, everybody's like, why are they just posting pictures from Shannon's stories? Because I'm vain. That's why. No, because she's scheduling her own pictures.
Because MP is just not with the program at this moment in time, but now I am.
But we are on there as Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem, so you can find us there. We are Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem on Facebook as well. Yes. But our website is mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com without the and. That's also our email at gmail.com. No and. And you can send us your stories. Send us your cuckoo, crazy, bug shit. Yes. Banana sandwich stories too.
And you know what we need? We need people to send us some ghost stories because we haven't done any good ghost stories.
Yeah, you know what? Ghost stories are tricky for us because once you start researching it, kind of goes. But if we're reading somebody else's ghost stories, we don't have to research it, you guys, and we can just read a fun story. Yes. So those would be amazing for you to send in to us.
Because I'm very cynical and I always think it's a teenager.
Yes, my problem is if somebody says, this death happened here, I'm going to go research that death. Yes. And when there's no fucking death, it ruins the whole story for me. But we don't have to research your girl stories. So please send those in. We just get to read them and have fun with them. And that would be amazing. Because then I don't have to be like, well, I disproved this and I disproved that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've started researching something and I'm like, nothing happened in this house. No ghost, no person died in this house.
I get you. I've been there too.
I know. So it's disappointing. So we want to hear your ghosty stories. We don't care how ridiculous they are.
That's right.
To us. We won't mock you that much.
No.
Okay. Also, like, share, follow, rate, please. We're available on most of the platforms for podcasts.
We're begging you, like us and share us. Please like us. Please share us.
We were up to 99 listens on our first one because it was 97 when I posted. We got 2 more listens after I posted that. But I haven't looked in a couple days, so we may have hit 100 listens on our very first episode.
That would be awesome.
And we're also very close to our next overall listening goal because I went in and looked and it shows you what the next ones are. And I was like, because I like posting our little medals. Our little awards.
Our little achievements.
It's so cute. But anyway, like, share us out, and the more listeners, the more email we'll get, the more fun stuff we can share, and all that, round and round and round we go. But anyway, thank you either way for listening to us and supporting us.
Yes, have a good week.
Bye.
And lock your doors.
Oh, yeah. Please always lock your doors.
Please lock your doors.
I don't care where you live. Bye.
Bye.